Hi, I'm Jen, and you're listening to the Shadow Sanctuary, where I dig into the history of haunted locations to try and find a correlation between historical fact and paranormal experience. Is there a reason for the haunting? Why does energy stay? Keep listening to find out more. Welcome to the Shadow Sanctuary. I'm your host, Jen. Do you like haunted attractions like me? If you do, you'll love tonight's episode about a haunted attraction that really is haunted. Tonight, I'm going to be telling you about the Mortuary in New Orleans, Louisiana. So, let's get into it. The landmass that was to become the city of New Orleans was formed around 2200 BCE when the Mississippi River deposited silt, creating the Delta region. It was inhabited by the indigenous for almost 1,300 years. French explorers, fur trappers, and traders arrived in the area by the 1690s. Some of the French made settlements amid the indigenous village of thatched huts along the bayou. By the end of the decade, the French made an encampment called Port Bayou Saint Jean. This would later be known as the Faubourg Saint Jean neighborhood. New Orleans was founded in early 1718 by the French under the direction of Louisiana Governor Jean Baptiste Le Moyne de Bienville. From its founding, the French intended New Orleans to be an important colonial city. The city was named in honor of the then regent of France, Philip II, Duke of Orleans. In 1722, New Orleans was made the capital of French Louisiana, replacing Biloxi in that role. The priest chronicler Pierre Francis Xavier de Charlevoix described New Orleans in 1721 as a place of 100 wretched hovels in a malarious wet thicket of willows and dwarf palmettos, infested by serpents and alligators. In September of 1722, a hurricane struck the city, blowing most of the structures down. After this, the administrators enforced the grid pattern still seen today in the streets of the city's French Quarter. Much of the colonial population in early days were of the wildest character: deported galley slaves, trappers, and gold hunters. In 1763, following Britain's victory in the Seven Years' War, the French colony was ceded to the Spanish Empire as a secret provision of the 1762 Treaty of Fontainebleau, confirmed the following year in the Treaty of Paris. This was to compensate Spain for the loss of Florida to the British. No Spanish governor came to take control until 1766. French and German settlers, hoping to restore New Orleans to French control, forced the Spanish governor to flee to Spain in the bloodless rebellion of 1768. A year later, the Spanish reasserted control, executing 5 ringleaders and sending 5 plotters to prison in Cuba, and formally instituting Spanish law. In the final third Spanish period, two massive fires burned the majority of the city's buildings. The Great New Orleans Fire of 1788 destroyed 856 buildings in the city on Good Friday of that year. In December of 1794, another fire destroyed 212 buildings. After the fires, the city was rebuilt with bricks. Much of the 18th century architecture still present in the French Quarter was built during this time. In 1800, Spain and France signed a treaty stipulating that Spain give Louisiana back to France. In April of 1803, Napoleon sold Louisiana to the United States in the Louisiana Purchase. From the early days, the city was known for its mixture of cultures: indigenous, Europeans, Africans, French, Spanish, and Haitians, even Creoles, people of French and African descent, called New Orleans home. There is much history of Louisiana and New Orleans in general to learn. I would be here all night talking about it, but I wanted to give you a quick overview. I encourage you to look up the history of New Orleans and to learn more. The Mortuary is a Victorian mansion built in 1872 by Irish immigrants Mary and John Slattery for family use. By the year 1880, Mary and John had 6 children and they all lived in the home. The home was sold in 1905 to William Klein and Marie Lafontaine and would remain in the possession of Marie until 1923. In 1928, the home was purchased by E. Howard McCaleb on behalf of McMahon Undertakers. The intent for the property was to be the biggest, grandest funeral home. It wasn't until 1930 that the undertaking company P.J. McMahon and Sons went into business at the home. In 1959, renovations were done to add new features to the building. After the renovations, the mansion became a modern full service funeral home. There were well over 20,000 funerals inside of the mansion. The property was sold in 1985, 1986, and again in 2004 to EHN2 Holdings. The company wanted to turn it into an academy for a day spa, so they gutted the entire property. During these renovations, the CEO of the corporation died under very mysterious circumstances. The property remained abandoned for 3 years. In 2007, the home was purchased again by Jeff Bourne, who turned it into a haunted house attraction and named it the Mortuary. Considering that this home was built in such a rich historical area and served as a funeral home that saw many of the city's deceased, are we really surprised that it is actually haunted? There is a woman dressed in white who haunts the building. You often see her on the top floor of the building crying. Her husband is said to have passed, and she sits up there in despair. Another legend states that a tall, well dressed man appears occasionally. He will only appear if he believes that people are disrespecting the cemeteries next door. It is said that he punishes the offenders by silencing them. There are also 2 children, a boy and a girl, in the home as well. They like to play pranks on the living. There is also a mortician who used to work there that has been seen by employees. You can hear voices and footsteps in the room when no one is inside. Many believe it is the mortician continuing to do his work in the basement. There is also poltergeist activity in the home. Furniture is known to move all by itself. Paranormal investigators have been successful at the property. The mortuary is a haunted attraction that is actually haunted. Located at 4800 Canal Street, New Orleans, the mortuary offers a haunted house attraction September through November, a mystery escape room, and a place to host private events. Days of operation and hours vary, so please check out their website for more information. If you pay them a visit, let them know the Shadow Sanctuary podcast sent you. Join me next month in April, where I tell you about haunted locations in Idaho, Montana, Iowa, and Florida. That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe. Be sure to check us out on Facebook for more information on upcoming episodes. As always, don't let the eerie vibes fade too quickly. Stay haunted, my friends.